The next one is school management and instructional leadership. Back on the list and continues to remain on the list is increasing class size by 1. And by doing that, that will eliminate 94.3 positions from the school system. That will be a savings of $5,933,991. That is a really big ticket item that is subtracted. That on average is approximately 1 to 1.5 positions from every school in the county on average. There will be, with diligence, Frank Eastham is here if you have any questions about the impact of that.
Okay, so moving on to school management and instructional leadership, 0305. Mrs. Dr. Altwerder.
I just need to know where class size would be in this section.
Class size is in Frank Eastham, School Management Instructional Leadership. Class size would be in 3010, 3020, and 3030.
And that's in this department. It's in this section.
I'm sorry, yes, it is in this section.
Well, I'd like to make a motion about class size. I don't know when
Go
the
ahead.
appropriate time is.
Right now.
Okay, in Dr. Martirano's revised reductions, he has increased class size across the board, which involves 94.3 positions for a total reallocation of $5,933,991. I'd like to propose that we only, let's see, how should I say this? That we make an adaptation to that so that we are not increasing class size for kindergarten, Title I schools, and schools with 40% or higher farms. That would still mean that we can reallocate, and I don't have the exact number because the number I received includes first grade. I'm not including first grade as an exclusion, but it would be in excess of $4,329,683, probably closer to $5 million, but I'm not sure. So that would decrease the allocation that you are suggesting, but it saves us from increasing class sizes for our most vulnerable students and in classrooms that teachers have to manage with many challenges. So I don't think we should increase in kindergarten. I think that's a major mistake. I think we already had done so, and it's been difficult. And I think it speaks for itself with Title I schools and schools with 40% farms and above already have its challenges. And although I would like to see absolutely no increase in class size, even by 1, because that is positions. We're not talking about, we'll just stick a kid here and there. It is 94 positions. So this would decrease the number of positions. Again, this includes first grade as an exclusion from this, and that's not correct. But it would probably come somewhere between 55 and 68 positions.
I second.
Okay, so what is your number that this would then be instead of $5,933,000?
Well, I have an incorrect number because I did not receive the final information I requested. If we were to include first grade in the exclusion, it would come to $4,329,683 to reallocate to the deficit. It will be probably closer to 5,000 instead, but I'm not sure.
So we received that request, Dr.
Yes.
Altwerder, at 5 o'clock, and
I know.
Ms. Grasty is at home working on it as we speak. And I believe she just sent, grade 1 would be a reduction of 4 positions, if I'm understanding.
So we'd add those back. And does she have a dollar amount for adding back 4
Table
positions?
B,
320 or something? 84 each.
The total allocation, reallocation now, instead of it being 50, not close to 6 million, would be what?
While they're doing that, can I review the motion with you?
Sure.
You're moving to increase class sizes by 1.
No, actually, I would like,
with the
not
ex-
like to,
With the exception
that way.
of, well,
Okay.
no,
This is-
I would like to exclude from the increase in class sizes, kindergarten, Title I schools.
that's, if you
And-
let me finish, that's in here, but
Yeah.
I
But
need to go
I don't
with,
want my motion to say I am in favor of increasing class sizes, except for, I am against increasing class sizes. What I am trying to do is at least exclude kindergarten.
Okay, how about if I make
And
the
the
motion
others.
then?
right.
I'll make the motion then.
So
Well,
we're-
Give me your.
can I,
thing.
No, I would like to make the motion.
Oh, okay.
we're saying the same thing, it's just the wording.
The wording means a lot to me.
I understand, but it's got to be logical. Let me just say it, and then I'll play with the words. Move to increase class size by 1 with the exception of kindergarten, Title I schools, and schools that exceed 40% in farms. Is that correct?
Okay, I get it. She wants to say, move to exclude kindergarten, Title I, and schools with 40% or more in farms in any, in the increase of
On the
one.
proposed increase
Increase.
of one per class
I-
size.
I really think
But
that
are
the-
you, but in that motion, are you approving a class size for all the other classes?
Right. Yes.
That's not, it's not clear in that motion, the way you want to word it. I'm sorry.
We have a proposal from Dr. Martirano.
Yeah, but we're working from our budget.
Right.
Well,
We're not working from his proposal.
She can do it if she
why not?
wants to.
Okay?
Okay.
I mean, we have a proposal from Dr. Martirano. I'm asking to adjust it so that we exclude kindergarten, Title I schools, and farm schools, schools with 40% or higher in farms.
May I please say that it's usual that the first motion, if the board supports it, is to increase class size.
Right.
And then there would be a second motion to exclude from the previous motion.
So you could vote against the increase in class size, and then you could move to reduce or to exclude those things.
But is it still okay for this motion to move forward without the first, having it as Dr. Altberger has said? I think she can.
Mr. Blum?
I think we can say it the way she said. I just want to be clear, make sure we're providing clear direction to staff of what the board wants. I'm fine with her wording, but does that provide clear direction to staff as what the board wants? Are we increasing the class sizes for the other classes?
I think
That is
Mrs.
the
French is
question.
right.
I think Mrs. French is right also.
And legal is telling us yes.
Yes,
So-
what?
So let's
That
vote
it's, that
first
what
on
we should
class
do is
size.
vote first on the increase in class sizes. Anyone who wants to vote against is free to do that. And if it does pass, then we can have a motion for excluding certain
Okay.
schools,
think
and then
that's
everyone can vote how they feel on that. Is that acceptable to everybody? So someone, do we need to withdraw, really, the motion never gelled, so.
Never doubt.
Okay, Mr. Hajibu.
May I ask a question
Yes,
to my
ma'am.
colleagues? On the diversity thing, I suggested that we hold off on that vote until later, but someone said we have to vote on it now, so I made that motion. And on this particular issue, this is the first big item that we're going to talk about. And we haven't, Dr. Martirano didn't include furloughs, but if the number was true at $3 million a day, I'm not suggesting I'm in favor of furloughs, but I don't like increasing class sizes either. So if this would save us $5.9 million, that means 2 furlough days would save the entire year of not increasing class sizes. So I'm simply asking all of you to consider, should we vote on this right now and agree to increase class sizes when we haven't even considered an alternative?
Isn't this where furloughs could also be considered, though?
Dr.
Keep in mind, I
Martirano?
mean, keep in mind, I've given you 3 proposals. And that's still included that's still in motion. You can pick and choose from all of those. Furlough days are in, but I didn't include in this last proposal.
I'm simply saying that if we are looking for 19 million and we grab 6 million here and all these, if we happen to agree on all the other recommendations, then we would have never considered furloughs because it's going to be midnight, we'll all end, and we, I don't want furloughs, but I don't want increased class sizes.
But also
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
it would just seem wise that we have a dialogue about which would be less painful to the system, less painful to teachers, less painful to our students. The overall system is going to suffer from increasing class sizes, and the overall system suffers from, say, furloughs, for example.
also
Mr. Blum,
under-
can you come forward and answer a couple of questions on process? Because
It's
one
a
of the things
negotiated
that,
item.
one of the things that we.
It's also a negotiated item.
Yes, one of the things we've talked about is that we can't simply impose furlough days. That would be something that would have to be added to negotiations. Would that be something that we would actually have to negotiate, adding to negotiations? Or is that a separate negotiation?
Mark Blum, General Counsel. On the issue of potential furlough days, the board cannot, at this juncture, enact or impose any furlough days for next school year relative to any employee who is in a bargaining unit. There's a process available to you, and I'd be glad to consult with you in closed session about that. But because we have not implemented that process, tonight the board cannot do that. And if I may, I would say that any board member can make any motion at any time, and some of Mr. Hajibu's arguments, I think, might go to a no vote, but you can make any motion at any time. And also, I don't think that the board's meeting tonight will end when you get to that mark of the 19 million. Someone may make a motion to bring up something which hasn't been considered in lieu and replace a previous cut. So as to the idea that you might get there and then someone might say, oh, I'd rather do such and such.
Because we're going to have to adopt each of these in order to be ready to vote on budget.
And this is not even your final vote. That's Monday.
Does that clarify anything for anybody? Okay. So do we,
I think.
we have,
But you can make your motion.
Ms. Delmont Small, I think, is the only, okay. Okay. Ms. French, you're all set, and Dr. Altwerger, and, okay, so do we want to proceed with the process that has been laid out where we approve the recommended
Yeah.
addition of one,
And then amended if,
and we can address it again later? Okay, so Ms. Ellis.
I really liked the motion that Dr. Altwerger had put on the table. That's why I seconded it. And I think to say that there's been some confusion, I was not confused about the motion. So
You want to call that question?
I'd like to call the question on what had been presented initially, and it takes care of everything in one swoop, that we can vote on the one student, excluding the categories that Dr. Altwerger had indicated.
Dr. Altwerger?
I appreciate that, but I think Ms. French was correct, that what we should do first is vote on whether or not we're going to increase class sizes. We can each vote whichever way we want. If we approve that, then I would move to exclude the conditions that I mentioned.
And Ms. Ellis?
Differentiate, right?
And you want it all in one because you wouldn't be doing one without the other.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Martirano wants
I've
to speak.
reworded my
Dr.
motion.
Martirano.
Go ahead.
So let us make sure before you make the motion that we can give you some accurate information. We're diligently calculating here. So I'd like for Frank Eastham and David Larner to give you the exact amount with precision based upon what we think your motion reflects now. And I'd also like Frank and David to provide the editorial comments of which we just had regarding the additional staff of which Title I schools already have.
So if we can go to Table B and look at
Page.
Where,
in the.
They don't have
Oh, I'm sorry,
that.
they don't have it, that's in the email.
It's an email, I think it's an email, but
It is an email.
It is, so
What time?
I can give you the numbers.
okay.
The proposal that was submitted by Dr. Martirano is $5.9 million. The proposal submitted with Dr. Altwerger's modifications is $4.57 million. So we would need to come up with an additional $1.3 million in other areas. I would like to note, and Mr. Larner can contribute as well, that we have schools that are very close to that 40% threshold who do not receive differentiated staffing or Title I staffing at the rate that those schools do. And so we would be impacting schools that do not have the additional staffing by increasing their class size by 1, but we would not be impacting schools like Title I and some other schools who receive those additional resources.
So the schools identified are the schools that we're already giving the differentiated staffing to that we've talked about earlier that goes along with those pool positions. So part of that 88 positions that we talked about, a 50 are pool, but 38 are differentiated staffing, and those go to the schools that Dr. Altwerger, you're identifying. So we are giving them, they are needier schools, there's no question about it, but we already are giving them additional staffing, and then this would, in addition to that, have their class sizes be less than the other schools. And as Mr. Easton mentioned, there are some schools in that 35 to 40% range or 30 to 40% range who are not receiving some of that differentiated staffing, who are going to get kind of double hit. So they don't get the advantage of differentiated staffing, and now they're not getting the advantage of the reduced, the
Well, then,
non-larger
would
class
you
sizes.
suggest we change this number to 35% and above?
I think whatever number you put it at, there's going to be the next group there. I mean, there's always going to be the next.
Correct. But the ones that are getting the differentiated staffing now would remain as is.
Correct.
We're not taking anything, we're not giving them anything additional. They would stay exactly the way they are.
But
I
they're-
would be against adding another person to all of the others, but in lieu of, you know, maybe we will vote this down, but if we approve it all, everyone's going to be hurt, rather than just some will be hurt.
Right. Correct.
Okay, Ms. Delmont Small?
Okay, to what Mr. Lerner just said, I heard, in my mind, what you just said canceled each other out. You said that the 40% that, you said something about a double hit. Which students
And
were
it's
getting
not.
double hit? Can you review?
So the schools that are at 40% and above, the schools that we are identifying now, they are schools that need additional support. There's no question about it. But they are getting, in some ways, a double bonus because they already have differentiated staffing, which they need, and they are also the ones that who now will not be impacted by the additional class size.
So
Now,
they will be status quo.
they will be status quo. Any school below 40%, almost all of them do not receive differentiated staffing, and they will be going up in their class size.
So the equity, there'd be a bigger gulf
Sure.
between
Now,
the two.
But equity is not the same as equal. Certainly, the schools that get the additional staffing need the additional staffing, so there's no question about them. But there's some in that middle ground, in that 30 to 40 range, or there's always that just miss out. So we just want to make sure the board's aware of that as you're making your decision.
So if we look at, for instance, if I can give some examples, if you haven't found the email response, I would just like to share that the high schools that will experience a class size increase are Athelton, Centennial, Glenelg, Hammond, Howard, Longreach, Marriott's Ridge, Mount Hebron, River Hill, and Reservoir.
Wouldn't it
And
be
which are
easier
the
to tell
ones?
us which ones
Right.
wouldn't?
Those schools will have a class size increase of 1 and an upper limit. And these are the smaller, these numbers are smaller than to read it the opposite way, I would be reading more schools' names. In the middle school.
No, just the
I'm
high
sorry.
school. Which high schools would be
Wild
not
Lake,
get?
Oakland Mills.
Wild Lake and Oakland Mills would be excluded from the one.
Correct.
Person increase.
Correct.
Well,
Okay, can.
okay, am I finished?
Yep,
Can I
please.
speak?
Yep, well, then Ms.
Oh,
French's turn.
Okay.
It's 1, 2.
Ms. French?
Okay. Have you looked at, I don't know if it would be, we have an extensive, beautiful course catalog. Have you looked at, because of funds, reducing the number of courses that would be available so that you don't have to staff as many of the courses? Even if you say 18, you have to have a class set of 18. That's a lot less than the 34 that some classes have. Is there a savings in that way, or it's not worth investigating?
Certainly, there would be a savings if we eliminated the course offerings. That would significantly impact our instructional program.
It would. But those are electives usually.
Yes,
They're
ma'am.
not the mandated courses for a diploma.
That you are correct. Except we do have some of our graduation requirements that we typically run at lower class sizes so that we can provide a greater support for those students in those class sizes. Some on-grade level classes in English and math. There are some, but you're absolutely right. There are elective classes that we could eliminate. Now, I would like to also say that would cause some riffing.
Oh, yes.
Because there would no longer be positions in the system for those teachers.
Wouldn't there be riffing if we increase class size?
There could be in elementary. It's too close to call at this point because we do not know how many teachers will be leaving at the end of the year.
So if we increase class size, the whole concept of restricting new hires to a certain pay level or years of experience would be moot. Is that?
Well, that's also a negotiated issue and which would be tough to implement for this budget year anyway.
I can't speak to that.
If I could just say that I do not feel as if it's a mandate that we have to reach the bottom line
Exactly.
of, we need to do the best we can.
And
But
then add it to the top.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Dr. Altwerger and then Ms. Delmont Small.
Okay. Thank you for saying that because I have the same thought. What we had asked for, even though it's very, very difficult to find reductions in other areas, we had asked that we only deal with reductions that don't have a critical effect on the classroom. Increasing class size and reducing staff by 94.3 is huge. It's huge. People have to understand that the burden that will be placed on our schools by losing staff is significant. Now, Mr. Kittleman has choices that he could make about how he funds our budget. He has a budget himself. We're getting a shrinking percentage of that budget all the time. We went from, if I'm correct, 52%, 58 at some point. We're down to 52% of the county budget. We could find as many cuts as possible that don't impact instruction and leave out the ones that do. And then it's up to Mr. Kittleman as to whether he wants us to increase class size. If we add this to the overall budget, then he will, and we let him know that if we don't get the full full request, well, we're going to need to increase class size, then he will have to tell the public that.
So maybe that actually leads us to Mr. Hajibu's original suggestion, I see him, that we should hold this off until we get to the bottom, or to the end, and then we can make a decision on that, based on where else we go. Dr. Martirano?
No, I'm good, I'm fine.
I didn't mean to derail you, I just wanted to,
I just, well. Let me
I
continue
mean, I think
then.
at this point,
Yeah.
voting on this is apparently a contentious issue that
Okay.
would alter what other people want to do for the rest of the process. But go ahead.
I'm basing this on some science, and whether we trust the science or we don't, we have a projection from the county that is approximately 46 million of new, how much is the new projection?
$19 million for new
For the
money.
county revenues for next year.
It's gonna, $19 million. Projections for FY19. Their total revenue, they're projecting will be $19 million.
Over last year.
Over last year.
For the whole
Yes.
county to,
So that includes what they accounted for what they're giving us this year. So even if they give us everything we are asking for now, which is $21 million, they can't afford it because they only have 19 they're projecting to get.
So the budget, I
So-
mean, you're on the Budget Affordability Committee.
Yes.
Understanding that. So I'm just a little bit of in a quandary. Understanding there's a certain amount of money. There are only so many vehicles to get new money, and it's an election year, and there's no more conversation about raising taxes. We've got a budget crisis that is critical, that if we don't address it, it's going to balloon. And I can't understand how we're going to have a system that's going to balloon to that level. I hear all the arguments. I don't know how I do, Dr. Altwerger, what you've asked to not impact instruction, because we've tried to do that every which way but loose regarding this, considering, once again, we say it over and over, 85% of this budget is personnel. How do we address that? And the big ticket items have to be addressed. The class size of raising one, it creates great concern. It's great concern, but that yields $6 million right off the top. We've cobbled together the other pieces to get us to that level, and I need to be put, and I'm going to ask one more time, you need to put me in a position of strength to deal with these next couple months as I go in front of the county council, and then at that time, we can have further discussions about all of this. But for us not to address this creates a position of weakness for me, the way I see it. Additionally, it does not allow us to go forward with the state to get the additional money. And I feel this has got, you've heard me react to this, I don't need to say anymore. This is a crisis that we're in. And so I know the class size issues, I know the concern about programs, I know all of those things. How do we get there? So I'm asking to proffer up other things. When we cut something that I haven't put on the list and say you want to add something back in, I'm going to go back to my original tenet and please ask the board, proffer up something else, the equivalent amount when you're adding something back in. Where's it going to come from? Because I've gone through this every way. We've scrubbed down to the level of which you've asked. And I'm sorry if I'm being a little bit more assertive here, but I'm so concerned about this that we have to do this, and I don't have many vehicles in front of us to lead us out of this.
Dr. Hajibu?
That was my dad. Increasing class size, is there, I understand in the general ed classes, we're talking these numbers, but how does it affect special eds or kids with IEPs?
It does not impact the number of special education teachers that are hired. That is, those teachers are hired using a ratio for the number of hours that students require.
I understand that. I'm imagining, though, that if a teacher had 32 kids in the class and now she has 33 or
Exactly.
34, there are more students in that class hypothetically with IEPs,
Yes, there could be,
by definition.
yes.
Yes, if in a particular, let's elementary school, in a particular grade, you had 5 classes, now you have 4, and there are 12 students with IEPs, it's 4 classes to have them between as opposed to 5 classes, so yes. that
Because the same number of kids with IEPs are in that school.
Right, exactly.
Does that answer your question? Move on to Ms. Delmont Small.
Yeah.
My colleague answered my question, and my superintendent reaffirmed the importance of sending to the county executive And the county
Balanced
council, a
budget.
balanced budget.
Dr. Altwerger, and then we
We
really need to
also
make a plan.
need to send to the county a budget that represents the quality of education that this county has become accustomed to, and that is the economic engine of this county. And by once again increasing class size, we have, in my opinion, lowered the quality of education in this county. We have a responsibility as a Board of Education to present a budget that preserves the high level of education that we have all been elected to defend and to preserve. I understand how Dr. Martirano feels. It's certainly a valid perspective, but I think that there's another perspective that we could take. Mr. Kittleman, in some of his advertisements, say he turned the county from a deficit into a $20 million surplus. Where is it? Why aren't we getting 58% of the budget, the county budget, like we used to? I think we need to tighten our belts and we need to reduce the deficit as much as we can without damaging instruction and without impacting our teachers and our kids.
Okay. Ms. Delmont Small, and then we need to make a plan on this.
Okay, I'm on. Here's my question. Do we have a sense of how many classes, and I'm going to use the high school as an example, where we have very low student numbers in those classes? For example, GT piano. I heard there are 4 students, and I'm not against piano, I'm not against GT, but I'm saying that if we have classes that we're running with students that are under 5, maybe that's, I hate to do it, but maybe that's where we need to look to try to do some reallocations that will enable us to bring down the deficit. Do we have a sense of that, or?
We just finished high school staffing, so
Right,
Mr.
so we
Lara
just,
can talk to that.
we did high school pre-staffing meetings. We met with all the high school principals and looked at with the current allocations, not with reduced allocations. So basically what principals do is they get a total number of staffing positions and then determine how best to use that. So a high school principal hears that they have 97.2 teaching positions, and then they figure out department by department how to do that. And I can tell you at those meetings, I can't give you a number, but there were very few classes as you just described. What is typically happening in situations like that is, so I'll give a foreign language example. There might be world language, I apologize, a world language example. What the schools are choosing to do is if only a few, so let's say a German program, only 6 students are going to be in German 4 and 7 students in German 3 and 8 students in German AP. Instead of running 3 separate classes, that will be one period. They'll all be there together. So there won't be a 6, a 7, and 8. There'll be one class of 21, and German 3, 4, and 5 will all be getting taught during the same time. So the principals are already working hard to do that. So can I tell you there are no classes like you were describing? That is, no. I can't say there are no. But they are already looking at combining small numbers to be able to offer students who want higher level German, for example, but then not to run 3 separate classes and use up 0.6 of a teacher, 3 different periods of a teacher, but then add that as 0.2, which is then becomes 1 period of a teacher because they're all in one class together.
Right, but I think I have a feeling from, just for that example, that's not necessarily going to give us a reallocation amount because I'm assuming it's only one teacher teaching that anyway. So instead of having physically 3 classes, they're having 1 class. So,
but there's then possibilities that we can look at. The school only needs fewer world language teachers, and then instead of this school having 1 German teacher and that school having 1 German teacher.
we have one that we share
Right,
between.
exactly. So
2
people are not
locations.
just sitting there not teaching classes. They are, or that teacher is certified in German and Italian, or German and French, and they're
Okay.
teaching 3 German periods and 2 French periods or whatever.
So is this something, to get a sense, is this something that was done during FY18, or is this something new that's being done for coming FY19? Because I'm trying to understand an impact. I'm trying to understand, this sounds great, but if we've always been doing that, it's not necessarily going to net us anything.
These decisions are made every year during
Okay.
the pre-staffing.
Okay. I just want to remind everybody that we are going to get another wag at this when it comes back to us in May after we get additional cuts, probably. Ms. French, and then seriously, no more discussion on this. We need to make a plan.
I'd like to move on and make a motion about a different area.
Oh, well, there you go. So do we want to hold off on
Hold
a
off
vote
on
on, is by consensus, we're going to wait for a vote on increasing class sizes, or?
Can I ask why we're waiting? Why we're waiting?
If furloughs is not an option, if there's no, I mean, I only raised the question earlier in
not
the
an
context of other big-ticket options. If there's no other big-ticket options, you might as well just keep rolling.
Okay, well, then let's have, are we going to vote on Ms. Dr. Altwerger's?
Can I say, are we going to vote on your
No, I would
motion?
like to make a motion prior to that motion.
Okay,
Well, you'd
so
have
you-
to remove,
so you
you'd
don't
have to
wanna do that.
withdraw
I'll
it.
remove it, but don't.
Ms.
We-
Ellis, will you,
I didn't
back it
erase
down?
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Ellis, will you agree to withdraw? Okay, so what's your other,
I move that,
I'm sorry, somebody's,
I just, with your permission, I'd just like to add a piece of information about coming back in May. Staffing in May
yeah,
would present many, many issues. It would mean that our Human Resources and Leadership Development Office could not offer open contracts in many areas if we were going to come back and revisit any number of the options that have been discussed and presented. So I just urge you to not wait until May for staffing positions. It would put teachers who are going to get RIFed out into the job market extremely late, and it would significantly hinder the quality of teachers that would be able to put in classrooms.
I'm sorry, I wasn't suggesting we not move on this tonight, but the detail of, half a teacher here or half a teacher
Right.
there is something you'll continue to work on.
Absolutely.
And be continuing to look for how it could shake out. I'm sorry,
Yes,
I wasn't clear on what I was suggesting there. Okay, Dr. Altwerger.
okay, so I move that we do not raise class sizes by 1. Simple.
Is there a second? Okay, motion fails for failure to,
Motion fails due to lack of a second.
Okay.
Okay, so now I move, can you reread the language that I had?
Yes. Move to exclude kindergarten, Title I schools, and schools that are 40% and above farms from the proposal of increasing class size by 1.
Thank you.
You second that? Okay.
Second.
So are you ready to vote?
yes, ma'am. Oh, Ms. Delmont Small.
Can we hear again the number
The
behind
numbers.
that?
It would go from, it would reduce the,
Just the
What would the
allocation number that
well,
you.
reallocation
that's why this motion is cockeyed, because
No, we
it-
got
No, it
a number.
isn't.
They shared.
The reallocation under this proposal is, Mr. Eastham,
4,570,000. It's a reduction from the proposal of 5,933,991.
right.
So it
So
would
we're still reallocating over $4,000. toward the-
4,570,000.
Right.
We would, it's about 1.3 million short of the
Right.
5.9 million.
Right.
Okay, are you ready to vote?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Hijibu?
No.
Ms. Coombs?
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger?
Yes.
Ms. Valencourt?
No.
Ms. Ellis?
Yes.
Ms. Delma Small?
No.
Mrs. French?
No.
Motion fails 3-4.
Okay, do we have another motion?
I move that we increase class sizes by 1.
A second.
We have a motion by Mr. Hijibu and a second by Mrs. Valencourt. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Hijibu?
Yes.
Ms. Coombs?
No.
Dr. Altwerger?
No.
Ms. Valencourt?
Yes.
Ms. Ellis?
No.
Ms. Delma Small?
Yes.
Mrs. French.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-3.
I have another motion.
Go ahead.
I move that we exclude from the increase in class size the kindergarten. Can we at least agree on that?
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Altwerger and a second by Ms. Coombs to exclude kindergarten from the previous motion. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Hajibu?
No.
Ms. Coombs?
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger?
Yes.
Ms. Valencourt?
Yes.
Ms. Ellis?
Yes.
Ms. Dallin Small?
Yes.
Mrs. French?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
It's $532,868. Yeah, so that will be taken off the 5.9.
What was that number again?
$532,868.
Okay.
So we're down to 5.4.
Okay.
Yes.